Okay.
Technically. True, right now there is.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here for our special meeting of the planning board today. We got a few items of business that we need to conduct at the moment, so just bear with us, please. You have an agenda before you, and if someone would be kind enough to make a
Make a
motion.
motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it unanimously. There was one A&R 8278, which they're asking to have it withdrawn.
I'll
so-
make that motion.
Without prejudice?
Yeah, without prejudice.
Got it.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say
Aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it unanimously. Previous plans, you have two of them before you at this point. Is there anything you want to discuss on either Ocean Avenue or Tacoma Green? Not it.
I make a motion to endorse the previous plans per staff recommendation.
Got it. Second.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those
Aye.
opposed, ayes have it unanimously. Great.
Saving paper today, using 2
Pardon?
seconds.
Yes, ma'am.
Make the request that before you all leave today, that you sign the
Oh,
plans for Ocean Avenue, because I have to take them up to the land court.
Okay,
okay.
Thank
great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's going to bring us to the public hearing on this point on our Special Article 2 that came before us for the upcoming town meeting on October 10th. We'll also be hearing this again today at 4:30 this afternoon as well.
Here.
Yes, correct. Yes, so we'll be hearing it twice today because there's some families out there who wanted to try to make it to and requested a later time to do this, so we're going to help them by doing another one of these at 4:30. What I'm going to ask you to do at this point is try to please limit the frame of discussion into the article itself. I know there's a lot of other things that are running with the 40B at this point. Please raise your hand to be recognized and identify where you're from. If, to keep things moving at this point, if you are going to state something and your neighbor's already said it, keep it brief and say, I agree with my neighbor. Okay, so I'd ask you to please do that. Above and beyond that, what I'd like to do at this point is Diane O'Neill.
Could I ask?
Yes, ma'am.
Just a second, if you don't mind. I don't know if everybody understands what our role is when we're reviewing here, as opposed to what happens
And-
at town meeting, if you see what I mean. And maybe, Andrew, could you explain, just in
that's
case
fine.
people
No,
don't
that's fine.
understand
I'm
that?
happy to have that done.
Sure. Okay. So the role of the planning board is to make a report, make a recommendation on any zoning article basically comes before the board. So your recommendation is to town meeting. It is not a binding recommendation in that town meeting can choose to not vote in accordance with your recommendation. It's a 2/3 vote, as all zoning articles are 2/3. Your options are to recommend as approved, to not recommend, or to make modifications within the scope of what has been submitted. So, and that typically means you can reduce the area that's been submitted, you cannot expand it or do things beyond what the article intends to do. Let's see, what else?
And the consequences of, it'll still come up whichever way we vote, right?
It's up for a vote, no matter what. The FinCom typically will put a comment on the articles. You will see that in the written warrant where it will say FinCom agrees with the planning board, or if and it's been rare that they have taken a different position. That's also a possibility. I will say, because this is a special within a special, that there's not going to be written comments. Basically, there's not time to put a written comment out, so it'll be orally reported at the town meeting.
Thanks a lot.
Does that help? Great. Okay. So just so you're aware too, we'll want to hear from the person who's sponsoring the article, and then we'll turn to the board and staff for their input, and then we'll open it to the public. Okay. So, yeah, great. Thank you for giving us a few moments there. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Diane O'Neill. I live at 14 Trip Drive. I was born and raised in Nantucket and have lived in this neighborhood for over 20 years. I sponsored this article in an effort to change what is happening in my neighborhood. I obtained the 100+ signatures needed to put this on the warrant in less than 2 days. I would like to point out that 85% of the 100+ signatures came directly from my neighborhood. In obtaining those signatures, I knocked on doors. I told every single person who signed that I'm not part of Nantucket Tipping Point, although I applaud their efforts in bringing the community together, and that for their own reasons, they do not support this. I also told them that this doesn't force the developer to change anything. It just gives them the option to change. Every single person I asked willingly signed. As I said, this zoning article, if passed, doesn't change a thing. It doesn't force them to change anything. It is an olive branch of sorts to possibly get the developer to change what they are proposing to do in our neighborhood and to the island. It would give them several options to redesign this property, hopefully coming to a compromise with the density of their project. With the 1 acre zoning, they could potentially go back to a nice neighborhood plan instead of this complete build-out that they have proposed. It may or may not pass, and if it does pass, they may or may not change what they have proposed. But at least if it passes, it gives them the option to do the right thing and not force this plan on us that clearly no one wants. Their plan, as it stands now, is a complete build-out of the property. This zoning change cannot increase the density. All it can do is give them the option to greatly reduce the scope, still make their money, and build a nice neighborhood. With the 2 acre zoning, they claim they have no other option in order to make their money. This article will give them the opportunity to change that.
Great. Thanks. Appreciate it. Board members, do you have anything at this stage you'd like to discuss, or do you want to go straight to the public hearing?
I think we should go to the public hearing.
All right, great.
I mean,
I think
personally.
Judith's nodding her head. I agree with that. So let's move ahead. So if anyone would like to comment?
I'm Ron Bamber. Want me to come up here?
Yeah, please, if you would, because this gets televised. and
I'm Ron Bamber. I've lived on Nantucket 47 years. I came here when I was 33, and I'm 80, and plus going on 81 soon. And I don't know if this young lady realizes that if they change it to LUG1, right now it is 4% ground cover. They're going to get more lots, but it's 7% ground cover then. It's going to increase the ground cover. You know, it's 7% if they get down to a 1 acre from the 4%. I have stuff to submit on my own, but I just got up. I didn't know if she realized that it's going to increase the ground cover to 7%. You did? Okay.
Should be 10, actually.
And just for the record, can we have your address too, please?
Sure,
Because we'll have to
28
go-
Washington Pond Road, Ron Bamber.
Thank you, sir.
I am going to submit some other stuff when you call me, and I'll get up and submit it to you.
You can submit it now if you like, because you're up and
All right?
I
I'd have to
will
come over to
gladly
the
take it from you.
table, and I'd like to give each one of you a package, if you would.
great. Thank you.
Do you want me to speak into a microphone here and tell you what it's about?
Why don't you give us, or give it to one of the staff members for disbursement to us, and then.
staff members here?
Pardon?
They'll hand it, they'll hand,
Or you
they'll
can give
hand
to
it
us
out.
personally, whatever you'd like to do. Doesn't make a difference. Thank you.
There's one package, and then I'm going to explain the package.
Great.
Okay. We have enough for everybody?
Can I share with you? I gave my dollar.
Here's what the package is
All right,
about.
so do me a favor. I'm gonna have you go back to the microphone
Okay.
because they won't pick you up otherwise.
Okay,
And-
and I'm going to leave one more thing here for you.
Yep.
Here are two small maps.
Should go the other side.
I've got the larger ones right here if you want to see them. Would you rather look at a larger one or smaller?
Maybe
This is
give it
adequate for me.
to our staff so they have it. Are you going to leave it
No,
with
these
us?
are $25 each. I've
Okay.
already gave, I don't know how many
Okay.
people.
No, that's
So you can
good.
hang on to it,
Thank
that's
you.
fine.
Anybody wants to see the large maps to see it, Andrew Boris, I believe, has already looked at it.
Thank you
Yeah.
very
great.
much.
I'm good.
Good.
before I go back there, I want you to turn to one page. I did talk to, go back
All
there one
right.
second.
Can you do me a favor if we're gonna?
And I'll bring it back up, okay?
Great. Yeah, you're kind of getting into the dialogue that I'd like to have. Thanks. I really appreciate it.
Okay, I'm submitting some stuff today. It's Ron Bamber. I am concerned what's happening with the 40B and what's happening with the sewer treatment plant, the landfill, and the ability for electricity to the island. So what I did was I called Mark Dakers, Mass Department of Environmental Protection, Southeast Regional Office, 20 Riverside Drive, Lakeville, Mass. He is the head man handling Nantucket to check on the landfill out there. So I called him and I told him what was going on here. And I said that I did get some copies from Rob McNeil and Grammy Durovich at the DPW, the latest test results on the water samples that they took at the landfill. And what it is, after getting the samples, I call Mark Danvers back, and yes, the wells are polluted. It says right here. And I've marked under them, a whole bunch of them are polluted with arsenic and everything. However, Mark Dakers said to me that there's no houses in the area. We know that. You know, the closest one is the subdivision that's got town water down on the right there. But there is one lot that the land bank owns behind the landfill where Michael Walsh lives that the land bank owned. That well, I told Eric Savetsky he ought to check it because the one that's got the arsenic and it's one of the worst ones out of about 8 wells, 8 of them are polluted. That's not shallow, it's also the deeper wells. It's all here. I've got all the map and everything showing where it is. You can read the whole set. Do you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then what I did make a meeting with Andrew Vorst and Leslie Snell last Tuesday, September 20th, to go see them. And I did get there, and what I explained to Andrew, I've been here since 1971, not that it mattered, but there was no zoning then, and how everything was run and done back then. The state didn't get any till 52, but there was none on Nantucket till 72. And the first thing Andrew said to me, you know, you lied to everybody at that 40B meeting. I was shocked. He said this to me. You lied to everybody at the 40B meeting.
All right.
Leslie Snell was there. So then, okay, I'm just saying this.
If you're
so
gonna,
then, after we got going in the story, I then said this. Well, Andrew, did you know there's 961 buildable lots on Nantucket? And I had them printed out by Nathan Porter, who got the information from the assessors. It's in 2 groups. It's right here. They're all in red. And I said, some of these lots are in subdivisions. To give you a typical example, the Canterbury Lane one. The people bought the land in 1979. I had nothing to do with them. I sold the property recently. There's 40 lots there, approval required subdivision, which are buildable. So I said, I asked this one question.
Can we start
Yes,
focusing onto the article, though?
I will. I'm going to get to
All
the
right,
main thing.
All right, thank you.
Here's the main thing. I said, if this 40B is built, would you issue the 156 permits, since it's all in a group, prior to anybody getting 961 of these lots that have been here for years? Would you put that subdivision against this, ahead of this one? And Andrew said, yes, I would. I would issue the 156 permits.
All right.
And then Leslie agreed with him.
Okay.
And I'd just like to make that on record, that everybody that's owned one of these lots for years and years, and the subdivisions, a lot of these lots are approval required, they would go behind these other lots. If for some reason there wasn't any more water or any more room in the sewer treatment plant, these people wouldn't be able to build in. That's my main thing for getting up here. And then I said,
Mr. Chairman,
ahead.
point of personal privilege.
Yes, sir.
This statement is completely false. I want the record to reflect this. This is a complete distortion of our conversation, and I totally object to this and question the relevance to this particular
Leslie,
warrant article.
I would like...
So, sir.
No. Yes.
Sir, all right. So I'm getting there's he said, she said.
Oh, no.
And
Okay.
if you'd like to discuss this
Yes.
either with myself and Mr. Vorse
Oh, yeah.
as the chair.
And bring
I'm
Leslie.
I'm happy,
Yeah.
yes, I'm happy to set up a
And,
setting.
and about 2 or 3 months ago, there was one other incident, and I just want to say this. And I read it in the paper, and I came down and I said to Leslie, Leslie, I don't know if I like this article or whatever it is. She said, please, Mr. Bamber, don't come to the meeting.
All right, so
and I
here we go.
did.
Mr.
Yeah, she
Bamber.
said that. You
Mr.
did.
Bamber,
Yes.
Mr. Bamber.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to focus on the article.
Okay.
I hear
well,
what
I'm
you're saying.
with the article is, I'm focusing on it right now. If this 40B went through,
Okay.
and they approved 156 lots, it's right on top of the aquifer. The sewer treatment plant takes all the sludge and mixes it with the garbage, and the landfill is just about getting maxed out. And all the wells that they just did in May, they're contaminated, shallow and deeper ones. It's right here in all the reports. I didn't do the reports. That's why I'm giving it to you to read the whole thing.
All right.
So, would you like anything more, or?
No, if you've got other things you want to say about the article
40B?
that's before, about the article that's before us at this point?
Yeah, about the article that's before you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, right now it's 4% ground cover, 2
Okay.
acre. If it goes to 1 acre, 7%, so they're going to include more ground cover.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody was going to just build, like you've got, what, 12 or 13 lots? If they were going to double the lots and build regular houses, I don't think anybody would complain. Do you see?
Mm-hmm.
But it's right over the aquifer. It's in the aquifer where the town wells are.
So is Mid-Island Shell and Sparks Avenue,
Ken?
Is it in it?
so you know.
Yeah, I don't want back and forth, so.
Oh, I'm just
Go ahead.
asking. I'm pretty positive it's in the aquifer, is it?
Do you want to comment back?
Recharge,
Pardon me?
It's in the wellhead recharge,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
so is Sparks Avenue.
Yep. Okay, what I'd like to do is drop this information off.
Thank you, sir.
So if you read it all, and I did do a blow-up map showing it in red, where the one well has got all the arsenic in it.
Great.
And I did circle and put them all in red, so you'll see that it's already contaminated out there.
Okay.
Did you want one of these to look it over, though?
I gave my,
This to the 40
Catherine, I gave Holly my copy, so,
And we're sharing copies, so
yeah,
we're
yes,
we're
if you
good
don't
here.
mind. Yes, I'd like it if I could.
Okay, good.
Catherine, I'll give it to you
I'd like
later.
read it through.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much.
And can you see this big enough?
Yes.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Can you also send me a PDF of that too?
Pardon me?
Can you send me a PDF of that also?
We
Well,
sent
send it
this
to Michael.
to Eleanor. We already emailed it to her today.
All right, I'll ask.
She said it was better, so we emailed her the whole thing today. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Patrick, good afternoon, sir.
Patrick Tafe, 21 Oak Grove Avenue. I'd just like to ask the proponent of the article if they have any type of communication with the developers of the property right now. If they were to ask the developers to withdraw their 40B application, I think they'd get a unanimous vote at our next special town meeting to convert this property to LUG1. Other than that, I don't see it happening. It seems moot to me with the 40B plan that's before the town right now. But that's an option.
Thanks, Diane.
I have not had any contact with the developer. I don't know them. I wouldn't know them if they were standing next to me. I'm just trying to put an option on the table to change this. This is my neighborhood. I've lived on this island most of my life. I was born here. I don't want this happening in my neighborhood. This is just an option to change. If someone else knows them and can ask that question, I think that would be great.
Great, thanks. Anyone else? No one else wanting to comment on this? All right. Anything else from the board? Ma'am?
Just so everybody knows, because we're going to continue this hearing until 4:30 today, we're not, at least for me, I'd rather wait and hear all the testimony before having a discussion. Is that okay, Mr. Chair? Just so everybody knows that it's not like we're not listening. It's just the process needs to be fair to everybody who's coming in to give us commentary,
Absolutely.
right? So that'll be on TV too, will it?
Yes, absolutely.
So if you're not going to come back, we're all coming back to be sure that everybody who wants to be heard gets heard. Okay, so we're doing that tonight, but I imagine not all of you are going to want to come back at 4:30. So just, we respect your being here now, but we're not going to resolve it now, right?
No, absolutely, no. We'll be taking a final vote this evening, so you're absolutely right. Where we're going to keep this part of the meeting open until this evening, and then we'll register. But by the end of today, we need to register a
Right.
final decision.
Yeah.
That has to go, just to make sure we hit the town meeting deadline.
So Judith, are you saying that you don't think we should comment now?
Well,
in here if they don't?
If
come
others
back?
want to, I'm just saying, I personally, I would rather hear the whole thing before getting us into the mix, because that way we've heard everything. But I don't know if others want to speak. I'm just explaining why I'm not going to say anything. It's
Got it.
not that I'm not listening. It's just that seems to me the fair way to go.
No, and I'm just offering you the opportunity. at
Yes,
this
I
point, but
appreciate
By
that.
no means does that preclude the
No,
fact that
I
we're done
appreciate it.
here. Oh,
Thank you.
God, no. No. All right, so thank you, ladies
Mr.
and gentlemen.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
When, I know the project, Diane had mentioned that she will not be able to be at the 4:30, so.
Okay, great.
I have to be at FinCom for the article.
I
Is upstairs at 4.
We're trying
Yes,
to
and-
accommodate every single person on the Nantucket. It's hard
No,
to do.
no, Diane, thank you. I really,
And Ms.
unfortunately.
O'Neill, I wonder if you have an extra copy of your statement, maybe that can just be provided in case somebody wants to read it, who's coming later. I don't know.
Thanks. All right, perfect.
Thank
All right,
you.
thanks. Really appreciate it. All right, so we're going to move on with the rest of our agenda at this point, because we've got a few other things we
Do you need
to
a
do.
motion to continue till later?
I mean, if you.
I'm just trying to dot all the Ts and
Yeah, all
Is.
right,
and
so
all.
let's just say motion.
Move
Yeah.
we continue till
Make a motion
4:30.
to continue.
She's got it.
Oh,
Second.
I defer to my friend here.
no.
Doesn't make a difference.
I move that we continue the public hearing and pick up again at 4:30 this
Yeah,
afternoon.
second.
Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so next thing before us at this point, proposed policy for citizens petitions for zoning changes. Fritz, do you want to?
Yeah, this is the item we had discussed a couple of times before.
Thank you, everyone. I'm sorry.
We got the one. You have the latest one?
You emailed it to everybody, right?
It's in the package, I think.
I don't know if I put it on, was that from yesterday?
There's only one change.
Right.
Based on, there have been two changes since we initially talked about it. One was a question about language which said similarly situated, and was that ambiguous? It's lawyer's language, but I took that out basically. Then an F has been added, which basically, I'll just read it. It's in your
Read it. I
package.
got it.
You got
Yep,
it?
I got it.
Yep.
Okay, but for the audience. The property that is the subject of the proposed amendment is in compliance with all applicable zoning laws. So that would simply be an additional requirement that we wouldn't approve a citizen's petition to change the zoning of a particular property if it wasn't in compliance with current zoning, which out of compliance for some reason, which I think was a good suggestion. So based on that, I would invite any discussion. I would like, I think at this point I would prefer to see it move forward and take some action on it today if possible. If there you want to discuss any of the individual paragraphs, we can, but it's basically much the same language as that we've had and you've seen on two prior occasions.
Thanks. Leslie, Andrew, I had sent you a draft version as well too. Did you include that in? No? No. Oh, sorry. Yeah, because I had some proposed language to dovetail into that. as well, which really went through additional points, making sure that people were that whoever the sponsor was showed up.
Yeah.
Because those are some of the things that we've been doing. We kind of take it for granted at this stage, but if we're gonna
Barry, can you talk so I can hear you?
I'm sorry. No, I had said
Okay.
something. I'm so
Okay.
sorry. I apologize.
Yeah.
What I did was some of the things that we've been doing already, like saying that whoever sponsored the article is going to be required to be at every meeting, including the town meeting proper, has to be there. If they don't have the courtesy of showing up, we're not going to track that article at all. Another thing that I brought up is just because.
But this has to go. This. Excuse me for interrupting.
Yeah, please. Go.
I just but this has to do with whether in advance of the meeting we're going to be giving a recommendation for that article.
Oh, I didn't understand that. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's what this
isn't
is
that right?
for.
That was just for us.
This is where we will give a recommendation for the article. So that will have long happened before the town meeting.
Okay.
But are you thinking, Barry, they should appear before us when we consider it?
I'll tell you from day one, well, I shouldn't say from day one, but as time moved along at this point, a lot of times the applicants weren't showing up, and we're expecting the planning board itself to carry water for it, and I found that kind of offensive after a while.
Or any representation.
Yeah, or any,
If
certainly
they weren't here
what-
for the winter, in a couple cases, they were not here.
That could be a separate.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
object to what you're saying. I'm
Yeah.
just saying that wasn't the focus
See, and I
of this
didn't-
particular guideline. It could be a separate guideline. It could be.
Okay.
It could be. It could be added to it, but I don't know what. I mean, it could be added to it by also, I suppose, saying, and we will not speak to the, whatever you want to say, speak to the question at the town meeting if they aren't present for it. But I presume you can do that just by making a decision not to do it.
Yeah, no.
I'm sorry, I think Ms. Alter left, but I would wonder who controls the ground rules of town meeting, if you see what I mean. I can see you're saying planning board isn't going to do something to carry it for you, just so they understand what it means to have the planning board, because we're obliged to review it, right?
Right.
But so they understand, it's like you want them to understand what they're getting in asking for that review, that it just means it's forwarding it as required for further consideration, but it doesn't mean that we're signing up to co-sponsor it. It's different from co-sponsoring. It's just, it's a review decision.
I mean, because when I read through this, my thought was this wasn't an internal guideline meant for us, that this was actually something that went forward to the general public to say this is how we're governing.
No, this is a
Gotcha.
policy to govern how we deal with citizens' petitions
I understand. Okay. so
before
that
the
was-
town meeting.
Thank you for explaining that to me. Do you guys?
I have a couple things. I was trying to ask, based on this last little part, I was taking each individual thing, and then I just thought of something else. Andrew, if a citizen puts an article in and gets the signatures and does it, if given a negative recommendation, it has nothing to do with whether it's printed. It could end up on the warrant.
Oh, correct.
So
In a
there's
situ-
like two separate issues here. Like they have a right to do something,
Proceed, yes,
even if
they
it's
will.
crazy and doesn't make any sense. It could
Absolutely.
still end up on the town meeting floor.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying.
I'm not, no. This is
That's
simply.
where it's a catch-22 when, with the citizens have a right to do that.
Maybe
It's
it-
complicated.
I'm not
Maybe it needs
questioning
like
that at
a
all.
preamble or something explaining what the role of the planning board is in reviewing these
Yeah.
things.
I
That
mean-
would be like a couple sentences explaining that.
I think staff, let me just go through quickly, like we did the last time, Fritz. I think staff, we're sort of doing that now. And I'm strictly talking about our own articles, that's already happening. I'm talking about a citizen article usually kind of does everybody kind of come in to make an appointment? I mean, I don't know of anyone that's just flipped an article for zoning and never talked to you before it gets to us.
No, it happens.
Have they a couple times?
It happens, yeah.
Okay, well, that would be certainly something that they would be checking. I would say B, I would add consistent with master plan and/or area plan if applicable. Because
think
a lot of
that's-
areas don't have an area plan.
I think that's in E.
E is, I was
Yeah.
gonna say, E, I would change the wording to, yeah, we could combine the two maybe and insert master plan or area plan if applicable, because not every part of the island has an area plan technically. What else
On
did I
that
do?
subject, could I
Yeah.
just, what is strategic plan? What is that a reference
That
to?
seems to be a new term that's used a lot now.
I thought we changed that too.
I think we did change it in the last.
I think we
section.
changed it to master plan.
Yeah,
That was a
it was.
comment, and whether
Yeah.
this just got picked up.
We just found that at Capcom too. This term strategic plan is getting thrown around like everybody's
Yeah.
saying it now.
No,
when
the intent-
Technically, the select board has that name, but it's getting used a lot. now,
E was
for whatever
intended to be a reference to the master plan.
reason. Yeah.
Got it, okay.
Okay, so that's good.
Okay.
That's
So I
exactly what
will.
I'm saying.
We
Okay.
would make that change.
Yep.
Let's see here. And then C, that usually happens, I mean, staff definitely does that as far as changing, especially commercial districts or mixed-use areas, they're looking at that. But as far as a citizen, I would definitely agree with C, is how it's written, the way it is, as far as it's a citizen article. I'm not concerned about staff in a planning article. Where else did I write here? I think that's it. Yeah, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Anyone else? So I've got a few things I just want to touch on here. Because I'm definitely, when I look at certain things, I always like to have where people can reference what that is, what that concept means. So let me just go back through this again. I'm not sure how you're going to be. I'm not sure how you're going to get to. So, I mean, I understand the concept we're going at this point would be in general public interest as define general public interest. Because, I mean,
That's a term that's used
Yeah.
generally in lots of language. I
and I
think
hear you.
the issue of convincing demonstration would mean is to get at the fact that the proponent
Yep.
would have to come in and satisfy us that the change would be in the general public interest.
see, and okay, so I hear that, but which part of the public? Because, you know, about everything we do at this point has, I mean, just like today, there's pros and cons that constantly flow back out there at this point.
And there's ebbs and flows.
You know what I'm saying? So all of a sudden, I'm kind of like,
But we have this language throughout the zoning, throughout
no,
the zoning bylaw.
yeah, I'm just
Throughout the zoning bylaw.
okay. You understand, but you.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I mean, that same language is right throughout the whole zoning.
Okay.
So whenever, a lot of things that we're doing, we're making a determination that it's in the general public interest.
I wonder if the point there isn't that that's always going to be debated, but as we decide about what to do in the face of a proposal, we have to work that out, talk about it, see what we think about that. And the fact that you're saying, really, you're putting it in contrast with not merely financial benefit to an individual or small group, because seeing sometimes at town meeting, there may be, I really want to be able to build a second home here for my kids. I mean, we've heard that before, right? So,
absolutely.
so is that, to just have an example in mind, I think that probably, as this language reads, that's kind of personal interest. That's not public interest, like a broader public interest.
Right.
But I think we would talk that through and weigh that. But
All right.
maybe others would disagree with it. That's just how I understood it. Nat was looking thoughtful.
I actually wrote the wrong thing down before for B, so I apologize to you guys about that. B says a lot. It's saying like 3 or 4 things that could, I mean, okay. I mean, you guys, it's no secret I like to talk about this stuff. One year, everybody thinks someone's getting rich off of a zoning change. And 5 minutes later, we're in favor of something for somebody that could be just as financially beneficial in some way than the previous year's article was. It's just, it changes depending on the mood, the way it's presented, it's a whole bunch of stuff. And I think what Fritz's original idea for this, this concept of all of these things was to remove the personality from the articles, which I agree with that. I agree with that. But as far as how do you determine a financial benefit, good or bad? I mean, we changed downtown to CDT in the inner core. Did it benefit buildings? Did it benefit the Graydon House? Yeah. They spent $28 million instead of not doing the project because they would have had to have parking if we didn't have 4 votes to waive it. I'm just giving you a quick one. It might not have even happened. So I don't know if I like to look at things from those perspectives. The CDT zoning was good for all of us, aggregately. The tank farm leaving is good for all of us. But somebody may be making money or losing money in and around all these changes in zoning, whether it's the Harbor Place future thing or whatever it is. We got rid of RC2 everywhere. Who lost?
Could I?
A lot of people did if you think about what could have happened that isn't. So it's hard to nail this one down. But I do understand your intent, and I don't actually even disagree with the broader intent of it. I just don't know how we can break it up into different pieces.
Well, let me just address a couple of things.
Sure.
First, remember that this is simply a policy on whether we vote as a board to support the citizens petition. It in no way has any effect on whether that citizens, I shouldn't say that. It may have an effect, but it doesn't put us in the position of appearing to be supporting a zoning change put forth by a single individual to rezone their single property, which has happened very often in the past. To address the question of financial benefit, it refers to an individual or a small group. So a citizen's petition to talk about rezoning an entire district presumably isn't a single individual or a
Usually that
small
would be a
group.
planning board article.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if it said general public interest, does that communicate more of what you're trying to get at instead of this kind of contrast to personal financial
The
interest?
finance thing is on the Nantucket. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. I mean, the financial benefit it's such a perception issue. I mean, it can be a financial benefit and you still end up, spending more than you benefited. I mean, it's in a lot of cases, these things are not as big of a gain as they appear to be on paper. I mean, I can think of a couple of individual lots. It's not spot zoning if it's already got the same zoning next to it. So I agree with this now, with your
I mean, it's a
point-
change,
with
and
your
remember,
point
it's
that
also
you're
a change
saying.
in classification. It's not anything. It's talking about a change in a classification of a district. So we're talking about going from
Yeah.
lug 2 to lug 1. We're talking about going
Yeah.
from something else. For one lot, for one person. That's really what this is
Yeah.
addressing. And I think
Go ahead.
it almost speaks for itself to say, if you're going to if you're going to take the zoning to allow a person who can only build on one lot by virtue of the zoning bylaws, and they want to have their property rezoned so they can have 2 lots, that's probably in their conveying a financial benefit to them.
Depending upon what's around them, there's other circumstances, but I get it. Now,
Yeah, yeah.
Andrew, can I just ask staff a question, Barry, for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Pertaining to this, I don't think the track record is very good on negative recommendations passed in town meeting from planning or finance, I would think.
I think that's true. For negative
I mean,
recommendations.
I don't think
I'm
we've
trying
ever
to-
had one. I mean, finance has had a couple, but usually they're
There have been some,
heart-wrenching type things.
there have
right?
been
So-
some sewer map overrides
Yeah.
of the finance committee.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't a negative recommendation.
No, no.
Right.
What I'm saying is, if under one of those points, if a citizen comes in that the article can go on the warrant anyway, and we give it a negative, it's not going to pass. Very
Yeah.
unlikely.
I'm not suggesting that we're going that far. This is simply not saying we're not giving a positive recommendation.
Well, what else is there? Take no action.
Take no
Or
action.
something.
No action.
Okay.
Take
all right.
no action.
got
That's what I'm assuming this
Okay.
would be. Originally, I think I had included language where it would be either where the language was saying, shall say, we oppose it.
Yeah, I got it.
And I took that out so that it's
Okay.
simply saying we won't support it. We won't. It'll simply be we're taking no position with respect to it.
Okay, I got it. It's kind of a cart before the horse. I wasn't fully understanding everything you were thinking about it. Now
Yep.
I'm getting it now more. So
Okay.
I think there's definitely there's a lot of stuff in here worth looking at as a, some kind of policy or some kind of guideline to the zoning. And again, a lot of these articles, you go without any, maybe 2 or 3, and then you could get 10 the next year.
Yeah.
Or, it ebbs and flows. A lot of times we've taken citizen articles and made them into planning board articles. A lot of citizens don't want that ability, to speak and call it, and it's not what they really want to do. I do think that Barry's point earlier about showing up or having representation should happen. We had, even if the person isn't here, that's not our problem. If they're not living here in the winter, I mean, and some of the stuff is in the fall.
I would agree with that as
know?
well. I don't think that
It's
that could be a separate.
It's very awkward when that happens, by the way,
Yeah.
as well. So, I think we also have to take into consideration what the rewrite that it's going to start next year, right? The master plan rewrite stuff. Some of the different neighborhoods we've talked about, maybe a little bit more area plan work, might flush out some of the small zoning issues that may or may not be out there that we may not even know about yet. Maybe, so I think that some of this stuff I think might happen on its own, some of these things, as improvements, as we go down the road. What kind of timeline do you have in your mind, Fritz, about sort of adopting this or modifying it, I should say? By the
Today?
end-
How about
before-
that?
Well, I don't know
It's
if
been
that's
three. It's been up. This is the third meeting.
But we haven't talked about it that much.
We haven't talked about it at all, really.
You know what I mean? So I'm just
Well,
saying,
there
I
were-
wasn't sure if you had something before April town meeting stuff or,
What-
that's all I'm asking, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, except for today, this is moot. I suppose until the town meeting.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
think about it. If you adopt this, what position does it put us in with respect to the article we're looking at today?
Oh, to me, the article we're looking at today, this would be the 6th time that it's been tried to change to 1 acre since 2014.
Well,
No.
I'll make it more straightforward.
No, I'm just saying, that's an easy answer to that.
Well, no. What I'm
say
trying
a
to
lot
what I'm
more.
trying to say is, we don't have another town meeting until April.
Right.
There's only
Right.
one article before us at the special town meeting
Right.
relating to a zoning change that relates to a single property.
Right.
Well, this is not a single it's a single property, but it's surrounded by by R40.
Well, it doesn't say single.
It's singly owned.
My position would be that if we adopted this,
Yeah.
this would apply to the vote that we're going to take at 4:30. That's not why I'm bringing it up.
I know
This
it's
was
not,
brought
but
up.
You brought it way before that.
I brought it up way before that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying to you, it has no applicability, and as long as, and therefore with respect to the question of timing, I don't have a problem on timing. I just simply want to point out to you that this is the only other article, this is the only thing that it could conceivably apply to before the April town meeting.
You know,
And like I say, I didn't orchestrate this to make a vote on that.
No.
I was just going to offer a thought that I think it's mid-November when citizen articles have to be filed, right? And
Yes.
it seems to me, based on this discussion, I'm conceiving of a document that is something like guidelines that describes, to begin with, like what it means to bring a citizen article and what the expectation is, that it's not us co-sponsoring, it's our review because that's expected. And then to list these other factors and say something like, in its deliberations on whether to support, reject, or take no action, the planning board will consider the following issues. Without, so that it's kind of telling the public and telling ourselves that this is kind of a checklist of what we should be thinking about. And that that is helpful because it clarifies the public's expectations. So if we could kind of do another slice at this and maybe take it up at our October meeting so that people who are preparing their guidelines, I mean, could be that we have an early November meeting and that would be good enough, but I think it would be helpful to us in having that kind of communication with the public. And that I also think, honestly, that we should be clear that it's perfectly fine for Andrew to assist, or Leslie or others to assist in perfecting things, and that people are encouraged to come in and talk before they try to do it themselves. So it's really like a citizen guide about how this part of the process works. To my mind, then it's not like binding ourselves. It's saying, here are factors to weigh in, and it's being transparent, which is always helpful. And it would eliminate these kinds of attacks about what's appropriate process and make that all plain. So I don't know. I'm happy to try to suggest some language around that to add to what everybody said and what Fritz has. But is that closer to where we are?
go ahead.
And I'd encourage staff to, I mean, in terms of the specific language and words, I just threw this out,
No, it's
and I was just surprised that there wasn't actually more discussion about individual words and language. That's what I was throwing it out for originally. And so when I wasn't getting any real feedback, I said, well, maybe everybody's happy with it. So anyway,
Good.
I'm perfectly happy. I would like to see us review it, have staff look at the language, make suggestions as to why something's not appropriate or is appropriate,
Yeah.
do whatever and get everybody's comments. But I would like to see us consider it and take a vote on it, whether it's plus or, whether we adopt it or not, by the time that citizens' petitions would be in, so that, as Judith has said, citizens know that we have adopted a policy that may affect what they think will happen when we review that particular zoning
Yeah,
amendment.
can you hold on for a second? Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I mean, I needed, from the staff's point of view, we needed to hear that there was buy-in, and this, unfortunately, this always got at the end of the meeting, and everybody's sort of ready to go.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I'm glad we had the chance to sort of like go over it, and I think that what I'm hearing from all of you is that there is support for it, and that we should move forward with it. I think that we could get this in shape for a vote
Yeah.
at our November meeting, which is before the deadline for the citizen articles to come in.
Okay.
We won't start reviewing citizen articles till our December meeting anyway. So again, this policy will be in place by that time.
I just want to make sure that if we adopt it, it's in place so that people are on notice before they're submitting their articles. So before the deadline, I mean, I don't know how we'd advertise, but I mean, if we adopt it at a meeting, then
Well,
presumably-
it might be too that you could let the town clerk know that this is pending and have that be a handout people could pick up as they're
Yeah, okay.
taking out
Yeah. Yeah.
material about it or
Yeah.
something.
I just don't think it's fair to have people put in their citizens petitions and then realize that at a meeting, we had adopted something they haven't seen yet, and
Right.
it changes their expectation of what we thought we might do.
Yeah, No, I agree with you. I would love to get this out before we get to town meeting at this point.
Yeah.
And there's another part that doesn't fail me either at this point, is that when you're here doing an article or listening to an article, all these points you're taking into consideration. Okay? It's not necessarily on the page, but in the back of your mind, you're running through
Yep.
that entire list of things that are there.
Yep.
So,
And in the October, our regular October meeting isn't out of the question. We might be able to just
I understand.
get it there, as long as, you know, we just have to save some time at the end of the meeting to.
Whatever. I'll leave that to you.
Yeah.
I mean, you've heard
I do
what
think
I'd like to see.
one thing that I think, you know, I think you should tie back to the purpose, which is section 1 of the bylaw, where it talks about general welfare and some other things, so we'll propose that.
Good.
I think too, I just want to be clear that this is for map changes, or is it for text changes? Because those are different.
Map, I think.
And
I think it's, I mean,
Hold on.
Like a text change would be
I think
the-
it's map because
Yeah.
it's really, it's focusing on, I mean, it's focusing on those things that you just see coming up time and time again, which this happens to be one of them. But if you know what I mean, you know, things that have come up to a meeting, right? Gets voted down, comes up the next year, gets voted down, comes up the next year, and what I'm saying, so I'm just saying we shouldn't be each year necessarily supporting that if it's getting voted down. So it's really directed. So I would say, you think a lot? Yeah. I mean, it's talking about the
I
classification.
think that typically with the text amendment, by its nature, it's going to have a broader application. It's
Yeah.
not just a single
yeah.
parcel.
Yeah.
And I think observing the warrants over the years, I think the ones that are particularly tricky are the ones where, as you said, Barry, that the proponent's not there, that it's about neighbors thinking about this very lot and how it's affecting me. And we should really be giving some guidance to not put people through all that. And I think if we were clear that we're putting that kind of a grid on particular map amendments, we're still allowed to look more broadly at text amendments, because sometimes somebody thinks they've got a map problem, but it really is a text problem. And I think, too, if we worked with it for a year and then find out that it's needs to be tweaked, or that I think it'll, you know, we'll have plenty of time to come back and see if anything else needs to be done.
And I agree with you. I mean, I didn't see this thing being etched in stone from when it was done.
Yeah.
And you know, the other thing that I brought up as a point which you didn't get to see was that I did want to include a paragraph in there, a short little sentence that basically says, because the planning board moves this forward into town meeting does not necessarily mean that we're endorsing the
Right.
article unto itself.
Right.
I mean, there are times where I
That's
believe
right.
that when a citizen
It should-
comes forward at this point,
They're you know,
I might not always like it.
you
but
might not vote for it at the town meeting.
On the other side of the coin,
right.
though, there's
Yeah.
a part of me that wants to give them the full-fledged opportunity to be able to vet that at town meeting, where I think that's the appropriate forum under which to deal with it at this point. And so I kind of view us in that gatekeeper role of doing things. Like I said, I mean, if it's totally egregious, that's a whole other thing altogether at this point.
But whether, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But I hopefully you understand what I'm
Yeah,
saying at this
sure.
point. It's, again, because we're thrust into that role to be able to do that, you know. there
But
are
as
times-
Nat said, whether we give it a positive, a negative, or no.
Oh, I know, it can be brought back.
Not brought back,
Well-
no, it can be brought up in the first
Well,
place.
that's-
Right, I'm
I
sorry,
mean,
that's what I meant.
The brought back part.
the brought back part it affects.
Yeah.
It affects I think it affects the brought back part.
It's on that. Oh, I'm sorry. On that
No?
point, where does that rule come from that you can't bring the same thing back
That's a
up?
different, that's more about a special permit or a
let-
subdivision, right?
Let me
No,
let
it's-
Andrew answer
It's a
that. because
state
this is-
requirement, repetitive petition. It needs a supermajority vote of the planning board to allow it to come back.
Well, it might be good to reference that in the policy
Agreed.
so that people
how
know
long? A
that going
year?
in.
But
2 years.
2 years.
but that's only if there's a negative, or if there's no. Let me rephrase that. If a citizen's petition goes forward, and the zoning and the planning board votes to support it, whatever you want to say,
Yep.
and it gets voted down, then it can come back and come back and come back.
Only with the vote of the supermajority of the board. So 4 of the 5 members have to vote to allow it to come back.
So in all those cases where something's voted down, the planning board supported it and it got voted down at the plan meeting, then at some subsequent point before the next annual town meeting that got brought up, a supermajority of this board voted to support it?
Yes.
And this one, yeah,
For map amendment.
because it makes sense.
Is that only as to map amendments?
To any zoning amendments. I mean, you.
Whether you support it, so it has no effect on whether you supported it or didn't support it. Whether the
level
board
of
at the
support.
initial,
If it fails,
yeah,
it can be brought back, if it's brought back in exactly the same format, the supermajority has to vote to allow it to go forward. You can-
regardless of what position the planning board took with respect to that at the prior meeting.
Yes.
That's not the way I understood it, but,
Yeah.
okay.
So if you make substantial changes to it,
It's like
that-
a fresh.
I mean, and
article.
that's something, again, the.
Okay, so it doesn't affect that. So this is purely a policy which is designed to state and set forth to the public what reasonable expectation they have if they're coming in with a with a zoning petition to change the classification of their particular lot or lots.
I want to use the precise language. I know what you're saying, but it's a map change, so I just.
A map change. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Because there's other classification changes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Overlay districts, other things, so I just want to be clear.
Yeah. Anything else on this?
No.
All right, good. That's great.
So we're going to look at it in October or November?
We're going to have it on the agenda, if that's okay.
I would love you to if you
And,
can make
and
October.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes, sir.
didn't understand you wanted your particular comments released yet, so
Oh, okay.
so that might be my
But
misunderstanding.
no, no,
so.
please don't worry about that. Because I didn't necessarily understand part of what the document was referring to and how that worked in relation to the board, so.
Okay, because we can distribute that, and then we'll also, look at it through the staff and come up with our suggestions.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, great. So on the scorecard discussion, Judith?
Sure. I was going to suggest it too. I saw Miss Alger go in and out. Maybe we could take a 3-minute break and sign this so she doesn't have to wait.
Sure, that's,
I was just gonna give it to her once the meeting was done.
Oh, okay.
okay.
Okay, fine, thanks. The scorecard point, it was a thought of the moment. It may be a dumb idea, but it occurred to me, I keep looking like this map that Mr. Bamber brought in. It's interesting to see display of data one way or another, and it just occurred to me that I wonder if there's any way we could be keeping track of the number of added units that are allowed. I mean, it's kind of like, how do we do baby steps toward the kind of data we're going to need to be compiling in the master plan? It could be bedrooms, could be units, could be other ways. I've particularly been concerned about accessory secondary dwellings, tertiary dwellings, and whether the goals that really were behind those changes are honestly being met, if they're really affordable, if they're really restricted for employee use or things like that. And it may be a dumb idea and it may be impossible, so let me say that to begin with. But I just wanted to flag it for brief conversation.
Mr.
So,
Chairman,
yeah.
I don't think it's a dumb idea, just so we're clear.
No, I
think it's a good
understand.
idea. It's just that I think we do flag certain things. We've been tracking, for example, dwelling units in the sewer district to have a running count of like where we are with that. We are looking at a build-out analysis update with our WPI students. There's, I guess, positives and negatives about broadcasting too much information about where vacant lots are because it's not, everyone gets to look at that, and it might set off more aggressive policies to get those developed when they're
That's a
all
good
in one
point.
place. We certainly can do that, but once those become public documents, they're shared by anybody. So that's, if that's something you want to do, that's fine.
I wasn't so much thinking about open space as how many things we're approving. It was more like that we, like United Way graph of how much money we've raised or somebody's blood pressure, like in
You're
any
talking
given.
about the, like covenants, the tertiaries.
Yeah,
the-
just
it's
just
sort of
so
keeping a
yeah.
newer list.
Yeah,
of the newer
and to
stuff.
know sort of what we're
Yeah.
doing at any given time, and I don't mean to go back, and I think your point's a very good one. I've seen that happen to areas that may have endangered species or things that people really feel they need to not brew it that around because it could lead to further injury to the environment. But it's more just for us keeping track ourselves to be aware. It's the kind of thing it would help me thinking about, since we're in the season of annual meeting proposals, to kind of be, sometimes you do, it's like the boiling the frog and the starting at low temperature and then pretty soon it's dead after it
Can't jump.
got hot enough. But it's like I'm trying to pay attention inch by inch as we go. But I think it would also, I have a sense that there's not always accurate information out in the world at large, and particularly that people may not fully appreciate the approval not required subdivisions. We have very little, if any, discretion on that kind of thing. So it's partly just to let everybody understand what's been put out into the environment now. So if next year there's debates about transportation impact, is it the planning board that did all this stuff? Well, some of it's been in the pipeline 10 years, right? But I'm just trying to keep my eye on that, and I think you all are more position. I mean, I could go and keep my little scratch list of how many I think, but that doesn't mean I'm accurate. And I just thought it may be helpful to others rather than just me trying to pay attention.
I'd support that, and I think we're going to be having discussions about the master plan and talking about that. I think this data that she's talking about having would be crucial in terms of how we deal with the master plan and what information we're putting in it. And it seems to me the kind of thing you need the historic information so that you understand where we've been to understand, because that impacts where we think we ought to be going. And you can't have a discussion. If there will be some discussion about building and how much building's going on and all of those issues, and there'll be a lot of information. And I think it's better that we have accurate information than to have a lot of misinformation.
That I agree with.
And so, to the
100%.
extent that we can have that broken down into different types of things, I think it will be helpful in that discussion of the master plan.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Did you?
And I'm
I
not
think-
suggesting we're identifying specific lots.
Well,
I
and
mean, you know.
too, we know you all are busy and beyond busy, so that's also has to be factored in. But it just seemed like it's something to raise for discussion.
And we do have some, I think it's important to understand, we do have, we just recently got fully staffed, which has been an amazing thing to get all our support staff now positions filled. And we are starting to build the database much more detailed on the building permits and that information. Leslie's been working on that. We do have a report on the tertiary dwellings, which we're going to hand out to you tonight. So we're not averse to doing it. It's just, I want to be clear what the requirement is. I don't want to hear, well, I asked for this information and I didn't get it, and without it being clear what it is you want.
Could you,
What do you think is appropriate? How's that?
I can do that. I think the building information is appropriate to distribute on quarterly type basis. Do you want it, how much, or do you want it?
That'd be fine.
Every meeting?
I would say even every 6 months. Just it's the kind of thing that if you don't, a year's too long because you can't even remember what happened. At least as you get older, it's harder to know. Was that last year, or this year, or when was that? So I'd say your guidance would be very appreciated in my mind.
I mean, in the annual town annual report, whatever it's called, you do have statistics in there, but there were some statistics in there that I think maybe I talked to Leslie about at one point, I don't remember, where I asked the question, it said so many building permits issued. Well, that's not totally helpful because we'd like to know building permits by like, what were they for?
Breaking it down.
If it's a building permit for a new door, that's not as important to me as if it's a building permit for a new house or for a substantial. We really want to know how many dwelling units are we creating, how many, and by classification, did it come in as a tertiary dwelling? Did it come in as a secondary dwelling? Is it a primary dwelling? Is it a covenant home? Is it things like that? So it's a matrix type thing, and I don't think we want to unduly burden, somebody's having to spend all day, every day putting up statistics, but if you want to come back with, here's what we would suggest that we do.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
And then we can look at it and say, well, yep, that's exactly what we had in mind. Or, gee, I like that, but I'd like one more category here, and we can talk about
it. It may make sense to think if you're going to implement something new, start doing it in January 2019. I don't mean to throw over everything you're doing, but I think it will be helpful as we go into the master planning. You're educating us in just giving us insights about what you think are relevant data, and things that we may say, well, is there a way to do this or that? I know I'm the NPEDC rep on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund board now, so we've been trying to sort out, and maybe somebody has this, I don't really fully think I know where to find it, the differences in covenant homes, shy list homes, all the different stripes of that, tertiary dwellings, workplace, employee housing, all that kind of thing. But I think that in developing any kind of game plan about housing and about where to target ways to address that need, we really need to think about that. That may not all be on your plate, but it just, if you come up with a plan to begin with, I bet there'll be other ways that others can come together around your framing. And I would have to say, too, I wondered if it's a budget issue, and that if we have any way to advocate to the select board that you have support to do that, that would be a good thing, too.
There's, yeah. Can I say a couple things? Go ahead. A lot of these questions are right here in this tertiary dwelling report, because the tertiary dwelling misinformation is a good example of, like in the Bass, it was just John McLaughlin's little secondary dwelling thing he used to keep in his little milk crate, and since the date that they came in, and that's all. Yeah. Now 10 years from now, we may have a Airbnb report.
Yeah.
How many tertiaries are Airbnb? You know what I mean? It could happen. I know it sounds silly, but it isn't
no,
really.
it's not. If you're going to tax
Because
it, you
then
want
we'll
to
be
know.
saying, well, this isn't helping year-round house. It's just, nothing stays the same, okay? The steamship's got so many numbers, I don't even know where I'm looking for anymore. I have to highlight it, because there's so much. So I think what we should do is what was just suggested, to sort of narrow down what we want to count. I don't think we need to know how many primary dwellings there are versus as many as, I think knowing how many dwellings total, and then knowing how many secondaries, covenants, and tertiaries is actually more important, because that gives us a better idea as to how things work. I know we know how many covenants there are. I think that count is kept right to the number. It's like 78 now, I think it is. Something like that. But the tertiary issue with the year-round, how many bedrooms are added, which there's not, all those questions getting answered is important, because the misinformation, whether it's social media or just the whole right now, anger factor right now in Nantucket is causing an incredible amount of misinformation. It's sad because that's what happens here, and it's happened before in the past with other issues.
Well,
I think this is a good time to do what you're saying, but in a way that's not too much information. I mean, the water stuff, that's just crazy. I mean, we already heard that we know that our water is okay. You know, the dump's not going to stay in Nantucket forever. I mean, there's a whole million things to talk about that stuff. It's really not even in our purview in that area, but it's good to talk about. So I think that we're on the right track for sort of cleaning up the numbers. How many bedrooms are really allowed? I heard somebody say the other day that you can build a new septic system that can let you have as many bedrooms as you want. Is that true? I don't know that. I'm not really sure.
But, okay.
You know what I mean? No, but I'm just saying, this
I hear
is
you.
the kind of thing that goes on.
Yeah.
So it's just a good time to sort of fix that. So I'm in agreement with this. It's just that we need to make sure that staff has the right direction for what we want to
agree.
happen. You know?
That's why I think the suggestion that you've kind of heard what we're talking about. So say, come back to us with, this is what we would propose to do. And then we'll either
Can we-
agree or we'll think it's
anything,
too
Andrew,
much or
can
too
we,
little.
And also add to this, to staff, is can we get anything through NPDC with any Delta T money or some other? I'm just asking if there's any, because you mentioned the students. That's why I thought of it. So, anyway.
All right. You gonna give it?
Might not want me to say anything, but if I offer money, maybe it'll be fine. As regards to a build-out analysis similar to what the Land Council did in 1997, where we partnered with the town, more than happy after.
Cormac, can you talk up a little
Sorry.
louder?
And
I don't
maybe
think it's-
That may not be on.
I
give
think
your
it's
name
working.
for the record.
Yeah.
Similar to what the Land Council did in 97, where we partnered with the town on a build-out analysis, more than happy to do that again. More than
Thanks.
Happy to provide funding. Probably, I guess you'll want to see what the WPI kids do, students do. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then we can go with them from there, but it's an option for you, Andrew, if you want, where we can help,
Right.
help fund that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
If we're talking about tertiary sort of now, can I ask one
I was
other?
just gonna say, we'll
Just
just-
flip it, the order.
Yeah.
One of the things that's struck me, I've always, when I read what you've got here and thought about this, I pictured a main house, a secondary dwelling, a tertiary dwelling, but it seems like we've gotten recently a number of situations where they're all in one structure, which to my mind is like a mini apartment. And it seems to me that, I don't know, because this goes back and others will have better history, but it seems to me that's a different use in terms of the how intense it is, or some of the ramifications of parking or other factors that go with that. So I had wanted to put forth for another time. It doesn't have to be today, certainly. Just the question of should that kind of mini apartment that might be employee housing or something like that, it seems to me we've got a couple of different things going on. And if we really do think, I know there was, when was it, back in March or something like that?
18 Pine Grove. That's what you're thinking of.
Well, but there was one way back that there was need to improve because it was in March or something like that.
Oh, you're
Do you know
thinking
the
of-
one I
know
mean?
which one,
Yeah. But
Or Manny, behind
some of
Manny's,
the
yeah.
argument for tertiary was to try to regularize basement apartments and other things like that. But those seem to me sort of like apples and oranges. And so I don't know, when you provide the data here, thinking about tertiary dwellings, to me that is like a dwelling, not necessarily just a dwelling unit that may be kind of built together with a couple of other things going on. So at some point I'd like to understand that better.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you field that one because that really became a very critical issue.
Right.
When this all came together.
The intent was to, I mean, I guess the intent was to include 3-unit buildings. But if you look at, there's a restriction on the bedrooms. So by choosing that option, you have to reduce the overall scope of your bedrooms. And from the earlier master plan, the biggest complaints we heard about were overcrowded duplexes. Okay, and as you know, and as we've talked about several times, you don't have control over the number of bedrooms in a duplex. Under state law, single and two-family dwelling units, the interior area are not subject to your review. When we move it to 3 units, the interior is subject to your review, and that's why there's the bedroom limitation. So in certain circumstances, and again, we were looking at minimum size lots, we thought about this very carefully, that there were quite a few 6-bedroom duplexes out there that might have semi or illegal apartments in their basements and other things. And the point was that under the bylaw, they could only have a max of 5 bedrooms. So they'd have to essentially start trading some of those bedrooms in for smaller units. And at least the thought by the board at the time was that smaller units are, better regulated. They don't get the sort of odd social interactions with sharing, and that it actually helped to regularize and put some safety facilities in a 3-unit structure.
They need
You've got to
sprinklers.
install sprinklers, where a 2-unit with weird, not full kitchens and not maybe full rear good access windows and other things, don't have to meet that particular, until you get the personnel onto the property and into the units. And that is not an easy process to get into these properties. I mean, it's typically triggered when there's some awful thing happening, like the
sale
unit
thing, yeah.
with the malfunctioning,
Fires or something.
the fires or something which gets that personnel on the property.
Yep.
But it's very difficult to enter properties without owner's permission and other things. So, without complaint-based enforcement, that's sort of the idea. And this was meant to get some of those situations legalized, in addition to the other part. But if you want to change that, I mean, you could remove that ability in a duplex that's typically treated as an accessory apartment in a duplex. You would eliminate that out as a possibility, if that's the thinking.
Could you explain that a little more?
Yeah. So
Sorry.
right now, a tertiary unit can be a separate, detached building. It can be an accessory unit in a single-family structure. So it could be a garage apartment. It could also be an accessory unit in a duplex. So that's
Okay,
the
yeah.
third unit in that existing 2-unit structure.
So that's how you're trying to get back into the duplex situation by managing, if you allow it to have a tertiary, then it gives you a chance to look at the whole picture.
Right. So you could make that particular, instead of a by right application, you could make that subject to a special permit. That's another option. The one that came in here was requesting a special permit because their bedroom count was going to be over the maximum that's allowed. So.
The other issue with this,
Go ahead.
Andrew, they touched on it, and I don't mean to. The code, he brought up sprinklers, but like, it's crazy. I don't know if you guys have seen some of the things that go on now. It is crazy. So if somebody is doing basement, tertiary, legal, good luck. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, because
So-
you have to have, 2 exits and all that kind, and,
It's way more than a basement with sheets, as
Yeah.
Richard Ray said during that town meeting. So I think that what we're seeing on these occasional ones with there's not enough room on the lot for another structure, or like at 18 Pine. I mean, 18 Pine Grove is I think it was the posted one recently, obviously. I mean, how would you unwind this. Like, you can't. I mean, it's a good thing. It just doesn't look like. It looks like we're making a dwelling that shouldn't be there, but it's already there. It's just illegal, and guess it gets into other things. There's a lot of that, and it's not a secret. And we're not making more people living in a house. We're making it legal and having conditions. Parking is under that. I mean, it is. I admit, it's definitely it's a strength. You called it a triplex. It's a triplex with separated legal kitchens and codes. So it's a tough one to grapple with, and it's not that common. But I do understand, and it does seem different than what it really is. But it's actually an improvement, even though it's hard to say that in it totally. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
There's a lot of places that I go. I mean, I go into a lot of people's houses, and I'll tell you, the improvement of a tertiary basement is great compared to what is there in a lot of houses. So,
I just want to take 1 minute. So, I mean, this passed with flying colors at town meeting. There was little
It was
debate
like a school.
about how bad it was, but everyone could see the positives in it. At the same time, and what had been going on for a few years beforehand, was there was this massive outcry about illegal dwellings, poor living conditions.
Right, I remember
the whole
all
nine
that.
yards
Right,
that
yep.
goes with
Yep.
the horror stories that you tend to hear up there, with no ability to do enforcement behind it. The thought here was too, using tertiary dwellings as another mechanism would actually start to decrease the number of illegal dwellings that was out there. People would take a preference toward, gee, I can live in someone's dirt basement, or I can move and upgrade for just about the same amount into a tertiary dwelling. It also was the ability at the same time to start trying to legalize some of those illegal type things that were hanging out there. So that's the way it was pitched, and that's the way it rolled forward at this point.
I'm hoping that we can see how it played out. I mean, to the degree, this is helpful to have some data on that.
Yeah.
I think there's also, I see Andrew wants to speak, but I
Yeah.
also wanted to go back to part one of it about the restrictions that would have to be in effect, but Andrew was looking articulate, so let him go.
Go ahead. Thanks,
Well,
guys.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's important to take a look at this data. You're just getting it, so you need some time to absorb it. I think 28 of these have been built over the 3-year period. 2 are in the triplex situation. One was for Housing Nantucket, and the other was the one you looked at on Pine Grove, which was the illegal situation.
right.
I think, our staff was able to sort of identify some of the occupants. I think that's, again, illustrates it is serving the kinds of people we had hoped that it would. It's a fairly young program. I don't know what our rate is this particular year, but from our perspective, I think it is, it's been an effective program, so.
Anything else?
Question?
Yeah.
As I understand the first number one, with the, this could be separate ownership or apartment? No?
What's that?
Can the tertiary be separate ownership in a triplex?
No, it would have to be joined. If you had a duplex, it would have to be part of one of the 2 units.
Okay.
So it could be a subset in a duplex that could be condoed. One unit could be just a single unit. The other unit would be the duplex, the second duplex unit, and that accessory unit.
Okay. Okay, that's good clarification. So in most cases, these we're talking about in the same building are apartments.
Either, you can see the list where it says.
I haven't had a chance to look at
Right,
the
so
yeah.
it seems like quite a few of them are in basements. at least the first year, second year, there have been new dwellings, so separate dwellings, some over garage, so.
Okay. Well, let me have a chance to look at it. Just another question. And maybe just for an explanation, when we're talking about secondary dwellings, the reference is covenant. In other words, it has to be, it can be same ownership or covenant, I think. I don't have it in front of me.
Or it could be a family member.
Family member, yeah, I don't have it in front of me.
Hold on.
Before we move on to that question, just about this information, I had intended to distribute one that said draft and had a couple of sources on it. So if you guys, maybe after the meeting, could just toss these, and I'll send you a revised version.
Got it.
So I don't want this really floating around without it saying draft on it.
Yep.
So your question about secondary dwellings, they do have to be in common ownership with the primary dwelling, or it can be sold separately, either as a condo or through the secondary lot program, subject to the Nantucket Housing Needs Covenant.
Okay.
Now, the family member piece of it has not passed through the legislature yet.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yep.
That's not an option right now, even though it is in the zoning bylaw. There
Oh,
were
oh,
two
that's really helpful.
Okay.
other
So,
pieces that had to happen.
okay, with that clarification then, when we come to tertiary dwelling, it's or subject to restriction limiting occupancy to a year-round household. What's the policy difference between one being covenant and one being year-round
Separate
household?
ownership.
Hold on.
Okay.
Because there's a lot more depth to it
Yeah.
than just that answer.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Just so the board is aware, whenever there is, see the application right behind you, there's one that you saw last month. The applicant indicates the ownership on the application. If they are not going to live on the premises, right, we have a few of those, that's where they provide us a recorded covenant. That is provided to us before they get their CO. So that is something that staff actually gets. We actually keep, and it's recorded. So not only do we ask for it to be recorded, but we also get a copy of it for our files. So that is something that we are following up on.
Okay.
Just want to be clear on that.
Does that help? Anything else on this?
No, I was just asking.
Well,
Oh, sorry.
I don't think
Okay.
that was
the
a.
intent of this is it's why it needs to be kept in the same ownership, and there's not an option to do separate ownership of the tertiary, is it was always intended to create rental housing.
Okay.
Okay, so, or common family housing. The intent wasn't to divide the ownership any smaller than what we've already allowed under the covenant program.
Do you mind one more follow-up? Do you think there should be more incentives affirmatively to encourage this kind of thing? Because it's a good model, I mean, in terms of new construction? Again, I'm thinking through the lens of affordability.
I mean, any dwelling unit, as people who are building units right now, are extremely expensive to build. There are programs that other communities have adopted to reduce the tax burden on these types of units if they're, serving the purpose. That might be an incentive. The problem has been our low tax rate here isn't, in other communities with higher tax rates, it's more of an incentive and I think more attractive. Provincetown has an example like that.
Part of what I'm trying to figure out is we see reaction about the kind of density the Surfside Crossing proposal would have and things like that. And in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund discussions, the sentiment seems to be broadly that it would be better to have dispersed, smaller scale projects so that you don't concentrate all the affordable housing in one area in large complexes. So I could imagine, I'm just making this up on the fly here, but if we had a fourplex program, and if, say, you had 3 of those are potentially market rate, but the fourth would be affordable in some metric, and that basically you get the fourth as a like a bonus incentive. That if you're going to dedicate it for affordable housing, and then you picked what locales that would be suitable for. Like probably my neighbors would hate me for saying this, but
Yeah, but you're onto something.
Quidnet is zone village residential, and it's out in the rural area, but I think I like to have diverse neighbors, and I could see, I don't know what the land costs would be on that, but do you see what I mean? It's sort of like, well, that may well be, but if you have a fourplex, you've got more space for how you set up the septic field, right? And I'm just trying to think about whether, I know there are some provisions we have that give density bonuses, and I know that we don't allow impact fees and stuff in Massachusetts, but I'm still trying to play with the concept of, are there ways to not just keep infilling the downtown, but have smaller complexes that would be beneficial to people in other places and make it a more less of a divided island, that it's not just folks that have very large lots and can afford big houses, but to have some more mix there, if that makes sense.
Before we get too deep into this, this is almost becoming its own separate discussion.
Okay,
I think
sorry, Barry. Okay.
No.
No, this is a
I'm-
great discussion. I just have to go to
I'm-
work.
Oh, yeah, right.
Don't get me wrong.
Good point.
Got to.
Two things. I'm glad you brought it up.
Okay.
It sounds like a separate discussion.
Sure,
There are some really
fine.
good points behind it, but all of a sudden, I'm also hearing all the things that are going to come out of it.
Right,
like,
sure.
Okay,
Let's carry it over.
You're overburdening septic. You're causing
good
more
Right.
infrastructure to happen. You're causing more traffic to happen
Right.
by dispersing the traffic patterns. So I'm just saying to you that that's why it really
Right.
does
And
kind of
let's
need
put
to
it
be.
over. It's just the homework
But
has been think
yeah.
about annual meeting articles, so I've been scratching my head on
I
that.
don't want to let it off the table.
Okay, well, let's
personally,
just
'cause
put
it's
it forward.
It's a good thought.
I
And-
also want to thank you, Mr. Chair, for this kind of a meeting where we can work through some policy stuff instead of
And-
coming to it the middle of the night after all. That is so good.
I know, and believe me, that hadn't failed me in any way, shape, or form. I really appreciate you being here today because these are things we need to be talking about. And God, I'd love to do it. For meetings.
Maybe we should schedule like an extra alternate,
I'm not sure I would do it routinely, but as these things
Yeah.
are coming up,
or at
yeah.
least have dates that we hold and then we can cancel them or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, a working session periodically.
yeah,
Workshop.
that's what I'm
Workshop
thinking. Yeah.
To do that.
Can I,
with the select-
So-
can I ask you a question? He's got to go to work.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Do
brutal.
you want to? I know. I understand, Nat. I really appreciate you being here, and I understand exactly
Can
what
we
shoes you're
carry
walking
the other
in.
stuff for?
Do you want
tonight?
to bring this up into 4:30 and see where we're at?
I would, but I'm happy to have it, in another month as well.
I-
Quick thing for
Yeah.
staff and Judith to think about on what you just said. It's something that I've talked to Andrew about a couple times, just the workforce housing bylaw, adjusting it a little bit. Keeping it away from the state. The friendly 40B is one thing, but the workforce housing bylaw passed
Exactly
November 9th,
right.
2015. But it's only allowed in CN and R5. I don't like to meddle with this stuff. They've done an incredible job in balancing zoning districts, unwinding the crazy stuff, but no one appreciates. They all left. See, there's nobody here except Cormac. Thank you, Cormac, very much.
No,
So-
stop.
Judy.
and Judy. And I know I see you there, Judy. Don't worry.
Matt, we
And
got
my
to bring
point
some
is,
gold stars.
my point is that this issue with South Shore Road is left over from 1972. You can't deny that. So was the area where Beach Plum is. That was Lug 2 across from R10. Okay? Think about that. All right? It's really easy, really, when you think about it. But what you're talking about is actually really fits into zoning, fixing, and enhancing a way to utilize local solutions, not letting the HAC decide what happens
Right.
here with stuff like this. That's my personal feeling about all this. So I agree with you. I don't know about quitting it, but no, it's
Come out, I'll
there's
make
a
you
lot of
tea. It's
ways
all right out there.
because this is a successful concept. It's
Well,
just a
you
question
could-
of fixing it and tweaking it a little bit.
I could also imagine that there may be other places, like some part of Tom Nevers.
Well, they got those massive lots out there.
Yeah, so anyway,
Huge.
so we'll hold off till later and come
Yeah.
back.
I think we should talk about this at another time as
Definitely.
an agenda item.
So with your permission, the other three things I really would like to try to get through today because
Yeah, for sure.
they're important and may actually help move
that's
some
great.
other things along. And I don't anticipate a long time on it.
No,
So with your blessing, if that's fine, we'll just bring those up at 4:30.
okay, so what do we,
did you-
we
go
move,
ahead.
To point out the next one, the statutory requirements for public hearings. I put some information in your packet about that. That was just an FYI.
Okay.
About like why the planning board holds public hearings related to war
Yep.
articles within a certain time frame.
So that just brought us down to 2.
Good.
It's in the packet. I didn't
thanks.
see it.
So
right.
we recess until tonight, is that the
We are
motion?
recessing until
Yeah,
4:30.
But we're not
Recess.
adjourning, we're
So
just
recess. One
recessing.
hearing, right? Okay.
Do you want to speak, or are you waving goodbye, Judy?
Oh, so sorry,
Oh.
dear heart. I apologize.
Okay.
No, you did the right thing, which is catch my attention.
Yeah.
Always trying to respect
And
the
you can
process.
come
No,
back
and
at
thank you.
4:30 too.
I
I
appreciate
will be back.
I appreciate it. Go
I mean,
ahead.
today's a big day. Lots of different things going on. Anyway, I just wanted to say about the scorecard. 6 months, a lot of things can happen in 6 months. I'd like to see it a shorter period of time.
Mhm.
If the land council's going to do a study, that, I think that'd be, and partake with both public and private, I think that's awesome. Because I think it's information that we really could use. And to help, it's just good information. If you, I like going to the GIS and just like float around there and just see what's going on with sidewalks and all sorts of different things. And all these building sizes, I think, or whatever people are putting on their properties and just how density's changing and it's being all designed. I think that's important for us to know. I'll keep it at that.
Okay.
But thank you.
You sure?
Thanks for
Thank you.
sticking with us.
Thank you for
Yeah.
hanging out.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Two separate public comments. Did you guys address the board endorsement for A&Rs? How did that?
Yeah, we did.
You guys did do that?
Yeah.
No, we
They-
did. That's
The
the last
board
of the
endorsement
agenda.
for.
Whether to delegate. that.
Oh, the sign.
Oh no, we're going to
thing.
talk about that this
You're going
evening.
to do it this evening?
Tonight.
But
Yeah.
speak now, we're happy to hear you.
Is it okay if I
Just
speak really
talk-
quick now?
Talk to
Do you
me.
mind?
I think we're good here. From
95% of them, probably even more, obviously understandable, rubber stamp. It's fine. It's the ones that are in my sort of small arena, the ones that have to comply with the 90% upland requirement. Probably would warrant a little bit more attention by the planning board as it relates to what the Concom did or actually didn't do with the wetlands delineations. The second one would be I don't know if it's 81 out, but the ones that deal with the ones with the
town.
structures, the
55.
buildings that were on before 55.
Yeah.
Totally understand it's clear in state law and in case law that they're allowed to do that, but when it gets down to the shed level, that's when it gets a little bit subjective and probably would require, in my opinion, some planning board
Aerials.
discussion. Well, not
More
even
proof.
Just for clarification, Cormac, this wouldn't be the staff signing them outside of the meeting. It's afterwards.
right.
Yeah, this is simple.
Yeah. Basically.
This is silent. This is actually just signing,
I've just
right?
seen other
This is a
communities-
signature.
I've
This
just
is
seen
not.
other communities
This
that
is not a
can't-
decision.
Oh no 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 no.
I've seen other communities where they delegate it all
We
to
talked
staff.
about that
That's
one
what
time.
that's what I was just.
That's what I.
wondering.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's so.
This is where we have to round them all up.
Fine. I just read that. I thought you were gonna.
Yeah.
Copy
No.
other
Okay.
communities.
Gotcha.
wouldn't
The
want- I
third
wouldn't want
thing,
that.
the last thing is the most important thing that I want to get on your radar screen, which I briefly talked with Leslie about, but we haven't reconnected.
Yeah.
Nanohumic cluster subdivision.
All right.
Jeff Koshulik, we hold the CR on the open space. The open space is also regulated through the cluster subdivision permit. There's been clear violations on the property, and for you guys, I really want to make sure that the improvements that he's required to do as it relates to the drainage infrastructure are reviewed beforehand by Ed Pesci, and I know he started that, but I got some indication by Mr. Koshulik that he may just go ahead and do things without Ed re-reviewing them. So what I'm requesting you, public comment, because I know this isn't the appropriate time to get into it too much. Can you put it on the agenda for the next planning board meeting?
Okay.
Because Mr. Koshulik is planning on doing those things, getting back into compliance, I think, mid to late October, and you.
Didn't we have this on
Flush
the
it all
agenda
out.
like 6 or 8 months ago or something?
This was a did.
I don't know.
Oh, it was a different one? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, this was on my radar, Cormac, I didn't get your last request until it was way too late to put it on the
Yeah,
agenda.
no worries.
But Ed has looked into it, so I think there may be some enforcement action
Okay,
possibly for the board to vote on.
Yeah, so that'd be
Got it.
great if we
Okay.
get it on the agenda. I appreciate that.
great. Thanks.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
So a motion to recess? Is that
Recess.
correct?
Yes.
Reconvene.